In the last lecture, we installed some production dependencies we'll need for the core of our application. Now I want to start working on the Webpack config. We already installed the Webpack tool. Here's the dependency in the package.json file. And I said that I will manage the workflow through the scripts we have here, which we then can run with npm run and then the script name, or in the case of the special script npm start, we can just type npm start. And the start script should be the one launching the development server. So I want to add a new script to the scripts section, which is called start. And on the right side of the colon, in the double quotation marks, which you need to use since this file uses the JSON format, here I want to simply execute webpack dev server. Make sure to not mistype. This has to be the name of this package, which simply exposes a function you execute with this call. So this will spin up the dev server. However, the dev server out of the box won't work. We need to configure it. And to configure it, I'll add a new file next to the package.json file. I'll name it webpack.config.js. This is a special file name. Make sure to name it exactly like this, webpack.config.js. Webpack will automatically look for this file when executing either Webpack or Webpack dev server as we do here. So it will automatically take this file into account. Therefore, you have to get the naming right. Now in this file, I'll set up my development workflow. We'll later create a separate file for the production workflow because there we will differ in some aspects. We will apply some extra optimizations and so on. So in the webpack.config.js file, I'll now set up my Webpack workflow. And for that, we need to export something here, which Webpack will then use. We do this with the node export format by writing module exports. And we then set this equal to a JavaScript object. So this is the syntax Webpack understands to read in the config we now specify in this JavaScript object. And I did mention the 4 important aspects of that configuration earlier on a slide. Let's start with the entry point. Here we define where the journey starts for Webpack. And we want to point to our index.js file here. So here I'll point to /source index.js. This tells Webpack that it should look at this file first and then analyze the dependencies of that file, which are all the imports. And then it is able to do something with these imports. However, to be able to handle CSS or any other non-JavaScript file, we need to give Webpack some extra setup. We need to do this for JavaScript files too though, since we use JSX, which is not native JavaScript, and since we use next generation JavaScript features too. We also import images and stuff like that. So that's all the stuff we have to handle with loaders later. Before we do that, I'll add one additional configuration. It's called DevTool. And here we can define which kind of source maps, if any, Webpack should generate. And I'll use cheap-module-eval-source.map here. Now that's super confusing long term. In the end, it is the best kind of source maps you can generate for development. Very detailed, good performance. So this is what you should use here to get source maps which allow you to easily debug your original code in the browser. So with that we got the entry. Let's now also define the output. So the output key. And here I want to create a new folder with a file. Output is not just a string, it's an object, and in that object we configure the path, so where this should be stored, the file name, so where how our file should be named, and the public path. That's important for Webpack to know where our files are put to, and if that then is the root folder of the server in the end, or if it's a nested folder. So here it should be the root folder, so public path is just an empty string, which means you store the files in a specific folder and you don't need to adjust any imports or adjust for anything. The file structure, the folder structure will be the folder structure as we deploy it in the end. More important is the file name. Here, that's a string too, we define what the file should be named. And I want to name it bundle.js. It's a convention to use bundle.js because it is a bundled JavaScript in the end. Now you might wonder what happens to CSS and images. These will be handled differently by certain loaders we add, and the loaders will define where the CSS or image code is put. So this only affects JavaScript, therefore it's bundle.js. Now the path is also important. Where should the assets be stored? And there I will actually import a node module, which is called path, which I do with the node import style where I require the path module. Now we didn't install this with npm install, but it is a default node module. So since we have node installed, we can also pull this in. The path object here has a resolve method, which allows us to generate an absolute path in the end. Here we can pass a special variable, which we have available in Node systems, and Webpack will use Node behind the scenes, so it will have access to that variable. It's __ dir name, and it refers to the directory this is run in. And then the second argument to resolve is the folder where we want to create it. And resolve will then create an absolute path, taking the full path to the current folder on our operating system and appending dist. So it will in the end output a file in the dist folder, which doesn't exist yet, which it will create instead, which is named bundle.js. This is the output of this operation. Now that is the base setup here. This doesn't transform any files or anything like that though. So these are all things I'll take care about in the next lectures.